keep on kissing babies and hugging fat girls.
He's alive! Kane is alive, Undertaker!
You are a sniveling little suck-up sellout full of suffering succotash, son!
It's me, Austin! Oh, son of a bitch! What? It's me, Austin! It was me all along, Austin!
And your t-shirts are too tight too, Billy! And you book a match with me! That's right, killers! Look at me! I'm a total package! I will rip him apart! I'm pissed now!
Where to, Stephanie?
Total Fucking Marks with Dan St. Germain.
Welcome, everybody, to Total F and Marks. I'm your host, the King of Sad Style, the man with the largest calves in the world, the St. Germain event. A bit of a departure from our normal podcast. I have a normal person, non-wrestling fan, on the show. You know him from his Comedy Central half hour, Netflix, the lineup. That's what it's called, right?
Great name, yeah. The comedy lineup.
The comedy lineup.
On Netflix, episode 8.
Episode 8.
Yeah, and I was a big wrestling fan. I went to Texas Tornado's last match before he popped his last balloon, before he died.
Oh, really? I didn't know
POD.
you were a wrestling fan back in the day.
I went to, not the Royal Rumble, but I think the Battle Royal. Because back in WWF had two. There was like a Royal Rumble, and then there was something else.
There's a Battle Royal. That's where everybody starts out in the ring.
Yes, and I went to that, and it was like the year,
like
it was like
Madison Square Garden.
Sid Justice, remember that guy?
That was like right around WrestleMania 8.
Yeah, so
where Hogan was still kind of on top. And
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
I used to rent all the videos, but I grew up, you know? I mean...
this is coming from a guy who just bragged about beating Super Mario World last night, so...
Yeah, well, I'm doing it ironically.
You know you're not. You don't do anything ironically. Everything about you, that's why I love you, is the most sincere.
No, it is. Yeah, my support for Ted Cruz, everything is... I hope he wins.
He's definitely going to win.
He
even
deserves
though
to win.
I gave fucking over $500 to Beto's campaign.
That's great. You know, angels in heaven come together and sing Dan's name. I mean, what do you want? Great, good for you. I'm glad.
I gave him more.
I'm glad.
Oh, I'm such a coastal
Such a good
liberal.
guy. That's why I'm friends with you, because I hope some of your goodness will rub off on me. You know, and it hasn't yet, but we'll see.
Oh, I love you, buddy. Why I had Tim on the. I also gave money to a fund sponsoring child soldiers in the Sudan this year. But I feel like it's good. It's like a good outside activity for them.
I don't know why we stopped supporting soldiers when they happen to be children. It would feel like we should support them more.
Yeah. To
be honest.
If you're really pro-life, in my mind, you support a child soldier.
100%.
It's not just about them in the womb. It's about them getting their hands on an AR-15 right afterwards.
People believe in things.
Well, what I brought you on to talk about today was something that is wrestling related, but not professional wrestling related. We both watched the documentary Team Foxcatcher, which was a 2016 documentary by John Greenhigh. What is it? High? Is it Hay? John Greenhigh?
Greenhale.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was an I. Greenhale on Netflix. We all know the movie Foxcatcher with Steve Carell and Channing Tatum and Mark Ruffalo. But I watched this documentary. It's one of my favorite Netflix documentaries, and I immediately thought you're the guy to watch this with, because we both enjoyed the movie.
I love the movie, and I thought the documentary was great because it gave, I think, more insight into him than the movie did.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I think they took a little bit more time with the circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's also a guy that if you and me just had absolute power and money, we'd turn into.
I was thinking about his life, and I'm like, here's an insanely wealthy guy. He lives with his mother alone in this big house. You know, something's bound to happen. You know what I mean? Like, that type of guy. Usually serial killers, a lot of them have these weird relationships with their mother.
Right.
You know, that's kind of a constant. And, you know, he's extremely wealthy, but he wasn't socialized in a way that, like, maybe the Roosevelts or the Kennedys were. And
Kennedys were too socialized.
Well, they were too social. So then you have all the ingredients for this very interesting life, which he led.
Yeah, an American hero, really.
I mean, he is very, when you watch it, there's something about him that remains likable throughout the film.
Yeah, but
for me.
But can you say the same thing about what's his name? The guy from the HBO documentary Killed 'Em All, that guy.
I don't know.
Oh, the Jinx, that
the Jinx,
documentary.
Robert Durst.
Yep.
I don't know. Not as likable because this guy believed. I think this, DuPont, kind of really. He did a lot for the wrestling program. He believed in these people. No,
it actually is. The one thing that I wanted to tackle on this, which this episode is going to be about the Foxcatcher estate, what they did for wrestling, and John DuPont's ultimate murder of David Schultz. But at the very end of it, the big question is whether or not John DuPont is going to get off because he's clinically insane, and he doesn't. He goes to jail.
Yeah.
But he's insane.
Right.
That was one of the things that I was like, they're like, well, I hope he doesn't get off because of insanity. I'm like, this is definitely an insane person.
Well, I mean, what would be the penalty if he got off for, with an insanity defense? Would he be committed for the rest of his life? Or would he? Okay, so he would not be able to leave.
Well, I mean, the question there is whether or not he would be able to leave. But I know that there's there's always that, like the guy who shot John Lennon. There's always the chance that you're able to be paroled. But in that situation, that guy wouldn't get out.
I mean, because I completely understand the insanity defense, but I think that in a situation like this, he's doing it again. If he gets out.
No, he should be in a mental institution for the rest of his life.
He has to be remanded to an institution.
No, he's criminally insane.
Right. I mean, he's
not just insane.
Right.
Insane. He's not like, somebody, who's on the spectrum, accidentally killing someone when they're under 18 or something.
No, he's real deal.
No, he's real deal insane. I mean, I don't know even where to begin with this documentary. First off, you just see how sad it is to be an amateur wrestler. It is one of the sadder things that you can like things that you can kind of carve out in life.
It was tough, and it was tough hearing them talk about their journey. And I remember one guy was like, I used to buy Big Macs on a coupon, and I used to live in this car, or what, and it, it's a very tough life. And then you have John DuPont in the picture, who's this wealthy guy who cares about these people. He has this program. He's flying them around. He's, one of the sadder parts of the documentary for me was like, they're all wrestling with him. They're letting him win. He's not at all a tough guy. He's not skilled.
When they have to hold that fake tournament, I mean, that is just
it's crazy.
Is that worse than the Long Island gigs you've done? What's worse?
No, it's not. Because it's still DuPont money. You're still in proximity to somebody who did something great even generations ago. Whereas, when you're performing at Ravioli's on Route 110, it's just a black hole.
One of the most interesting things, too, is there's a lot of shoot interviews. And you realize how horrible of a life wrestlers have, and I'm talking about amateur wrestlers, not professional wrestlers. Although there's a case to be said for that to be said about professional wrestlers as well. Although there's an incentive to make money there at least. Is Kurt Angle, who's one of the greatest WWE superstars of all times. There's a shoot interview where he's talking about the DuPonts, and you think he's gonna be like, "Fuck this motherfucker," and he's like, we. Wish there was help, we could have gotten because they're like the guy was bankrolling.
Yeah,
it did split that community. The guy is bankrolling an entire art form.
Yeah. Well, I think that you got to look at
what
drives you to be an amateur wrestler, and the idea that you're going to go pro.
There's no real reason. I was thinking about that because in high school, if you want to get girls, you join the football team, you join the basketball team, or maybe the soccer team. And if you want to be a badass, now you're going to UFC and MMA and boxing, and wrestling is the backbone. They say if you want to become a mixed martial artist, you have to have a really good background in wrestling. But I was just wondering, because I used to wrestle, and it's such a bizarre. Once you get into it. It's almost like a monk-like existence,
Right.
Because you get there.
It's a calling, right? Isn't it more?
It's more of a calling. It's like chamber music.
Yeah, it's like you're just doing it to do it. stand-up comedy is connected, I think, to the larger architecture of the entertainment business, and there is this idea that it's not completely, you can move up, but in wrestling, amateur wrestling, is there the idea that you're going to be a professional wrestler?
I mean, sometimes, but none of those guys that are really good at it, and there's some people that, obviously Brock Lesnar was an incredible amateur wrestler. Kurt Angle won a fucking gold medal with a goddamn broken neck, not to quote him, Dolph Ziggler was a good amateur wrestler. A lot of these guys have amateur backgrounds, Shelton Benjamin.
And is this like backyard wrestling, amateur wrestling? Is that
No, this is like high school,
okay.
This is like real
college, high school.
And
then you graduate college and then
yeah, but you don't get paid like Brock Lesnar won the
NCAA championship.
NCAA championship. He was like a real. Actually, Pete Wee, he almost kicked Pete Wee's ass because, Pete Wee...
Comedian?
Yeah, comedian Pete Wee. You see his sets on The Tonight Show. He backed his car into Brock Lesnar's, and they lived right next to each other in college. And, Brock came to his house and was just like, you... And Brock, because Brock could murder anybody,
Yeah.
So it's one of these things, like he came to his house, and then there was, just this moment, he goes, and Pete's like, I'm sorry, I did this, I'm sorry. And Brock just, pauses for a second, he goes... Okay, you got to buy me a case of beer every week.
Yeah.
And he's like, and it wasn't like a bullying thing, but that case of beer had to be there every fucking week. There would be a slam on the door.
Pete's a cuck, but whatever. What do you want me to say? Also, don't hit someone's car.
That was an accident.
Yeah, sure. But because in lacrosse, which I think is kind of a fitting analogy, when you graduate from college, there is no real professional league that isn't so much sadder than just quitting. Yeah. There's one on Long Island where the teams are like I did a joke about lacrosse on Long Island, basically saying that they have indoor lacrosse on Long Island. They have whatever they call it. I forget that. You might know. Yeah. What's the type of lacrosse they have?
Oh, I have no idea.
Well, whatever.
I'm not
One
a lacrosse
guy in
guy.
the audience, I'm doing this thing about lacrosse teams. I'm like, and the guy goes like this. He's like, my son's in the Lizards. And it was a professional lacrosse team, and it was the saddest thing ever. I'm like, oh, it's so much better to not do this, to just quit, and to not live the life of explaining to people that you're on the Long Island Lizards professional lacrosse team.
Yeah, that sounds like a bar you go to in Key West.
Yeah.
Not a lacrosse team.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. But some people just really want to belong. There's a community. There's something deep in them that wants to do this. And it's not logical. But it's okay.
No, it's not. It's not logical, but it's... I wonder if there's any way to make wrestling... Because the thing about UFC is that, what everybody likes about UFC is, the best guy in, probably the world right now, Khabib, right? I mean, the thing that's so great about him is that he wrestles people to the ground, and once he gets you down, you're fucked,
Right.
But that's not what people really want to watch. That's why he gets booed a lot. People like people getting knocked out still. People like that Mike Tyson thing. So, I just don't think there would be any commercial world for wrestling... just two men trying to get each other down to the ground are the most basic, and you can't break somebody's arm.
No, I think it's only in the very theatrical world of professional wrestling.
Yeah, and then to take that theatrical element of it,
No, you need that element. You need the storylines, the narratives. Without that, it's completely defunct.
Yeah,
nobody would care. Nobody's watching technical wrestling. What kind of loser is sitting at home watching that? What kind of odd...
What do you think is a weirder fan? A bowling fan or a wrestling fan?
Both completely useless people. Anybody who's a fan of either one of those sports is a net zero on Earth. I can't think of a less useful...
What do you think is the saddest type of fan?
I don't know. Comedy fans, podcast fans.
I don't know.
I'm saying they're bad, but they're nowhere near the worst. I don't know. It's hard for me to know because I didn't know bowling fans existed. I didn't know that just people would go to a bowling alley and watch a tournament that weren't bowling. I didn't know
it happens every year.
I'm sure there are.
Professional poker player fans?
I think anything where you're in a passive role, where you're leaving your house to go watch it. but it's not like a huge thing that a lot of people watch. To me, is probably an issue. I was performing in Erie, Pennsylvania recently. I don't want to brag. I'm doing very well. And they told me, they go, Friday night sales are not going to be good. And I'm like, why? They go, it's high school football. And I said, they go, the whole town goes. I'm like, even if you don't have kids? They're like, oh, yeah. The whole town goes to watch high school football in Erie, Pennsylvania. So this is after they told me, by the way, we have a new hot restaurant that opened up. Nobody could get in. I swear to God, I said, what's the restaurant called? They said, Popeyes. I'm like, what is it, like a tavern or something? They go, Popeyes Louisiana Kitchen. I said, well, okay. But to me, that's weird too, going to see a high school football game if you don't have kids.
Yeah, there's something there. I mean, I think... I don't think it's as weird as going to like a beauty pageant. That's the weirdest.
Yeah, well, that's probably legally actionable, depending on I mean, nobody wants
that. But yeah, no, it's these guys who probably like got drunk and played football in fucking high school, and now they're in Erie doing God knows what's the big industry in Erie.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, there didn't seem to be a lot. I mean, in those parts of the country, and Erie is the most western part of Pennsylvania, and at the top, it's the northern. It's right on Lake Erie. It's all fast food and truckers and motel. I mean, it's pretty bad. I mean, they have one art museum. They have like the lake in the summer. There's a fair amount of tourism, but for 9 months out of the year, it's brutally cold. I mean, it's not a great spot.
They have a movie theater.
Yeah, they got all that, but the factories are gone. If they were ever there. I mean, I don't know what was ever in Erie. I think a lot of it's just, the same thing as like you have, once industrial centers that are kind of left to, as you say, the service industry and, and stand-up comedy. Come on down.
Yeah, come on down. Come on down.
And that's the thing about the DuPont. What's interesting about this guy is he's part of this dynasty, but he's kind of left alone to just do what he wants. Like he's not socialized. He's living with his mother, who seems off.
Yeah, I mean, I think any person who's in a dynasty, it's like
he's not married.
Yeah, somebody said this to me. Dan Goodman, comedian, he said this to me. He's like, if you're poor or you're really rich, you're just thinking about money all the time.
Right.
Those are the two things, and that's got to do something to you. Like, if you're middle class, upper middle class, lower middle class, like there's kind of a balance there. You're like, all right. But in a situation like that, where you're that sheltered, and one of the things that he keeps bringing up, where I mean, there's so many crazy things that are in that documentary that aren't in the movie. Hiring that private security force to look for tunnels.
Yeah.
Well, let's just give some background.
What made him love wrestling is my question.
I mean, I think that there was a camaraderie there, and and it's also a camaraderie that's just guys,
And he was gay.
Yeah, it seemed like he was gay.
Give some background.
Well, John DuPont wants to put American wrestling on the map and essentially open this gigantic training ground on the DuPont estate, which is one of the most wealthy French families of all time. And he brings Dave Schultz, who's an Olympic wrestler, his brother Mark Schultz, who was played by Channing Tatum, right, and Zach in the movie, who's not really featured that much here, and all of their wives, and then the best wrestlers in the country, and outside the country, including Valentin Yordanov. Did I get that right?
I think that was pretty close. Yeah.
And he's also a world champion, and like guys like Dan Chatter you're talking about with the McDonald's. I think you had mentioned that earlier in the podcast. So he was bringing all these. He essentially wanted to create a wrestling utopia, and he provided homes for the families, and for these guys who were doing these, like who were going up against the Russians who were state funded. It was a dream, They're able to be like, oh, okay, well, I can really live a life and get paid and practice what I do. It's the the equivalent of getting a fucking writing job or starting to make money as a comedian. So
did he wrestle as a child? Was he a high school?
Yeah, all
wrestler?
those guys start really young.
DuPont.
Oh, DuPont. I think that this is when he started. He decided to start when these guys came in, so they had to make a. And people who are experts on this, please correct us. But that's why they started that Elder Classics League or whatever. What was
John
it called?
DuPont we're going off the documentary, right? So and they
what was the league called?
I don't remember. Did they,
but it was a fake league where guys were basically essentially paid to lose, and then were paid out right afterwards. So John DuPont could think that he was this.
You know what this
incredible
reminded me of?
replaceable.
Actually, this had a kind of. It had a weird resemblance to the movie Tickled, that documentary,
Right.
With the guy from Long
Well, I
Island.
mean, that guy.
You know,
that guy's a genuine sociopath.
Sure,
Like
I know.
a masochist.
Unlike DuPont, who's a statesman, he's a head of state. But there's something about create the need to create this community and kind of be somewhat, in charge of something. You are. You have all these desperate young men who need status, money. They need it all, and you're providing them that. And then and they are doing everything you ask, and then going far and beyond to kind of make sure that reality doesn't puncture your world.
Yeah,
they're wrestling with you. They're letting you win. They're doing these fake tournaments. They're doing everything that you could ever want them to do.
One of the big. I mean, the real turning point in the documentary is when he basically fires all the black players from the team, and some of them were on their way to the Olympics. Were former medalists. What was the name of the one? Black?
Kevin Jackson is
Jackson
was like the main one.
Is the main one. They fire him, and it's so insane because they're like, or is it because it's because they're black? Because yes, it's because they're literally black.
Yeah.
But I got rid of the black horses too.
Yeah.
Which obviously has some white supremacist elements to it, but it's also it's a lot mostly. But like that basic like I don't like black things, and then everybody fucking decides to stay after that.
Yeah.
You're kind of like if you're you're kind of like if you're fucking. If you're Dave Schultz or whatever, or like all these other wrestlers, and you decide to stay at that point, that's a jump the shark moment when you're like, no, I'm definitely getting rid of these people because they're black.
Well, it's also like, I think there was this idea that something bad was going to happen throughout the whole documentary. There was this idea that like this isn't ending well. This doesn't end well. None of these circumstances, and then like the end of it isn't. And then he put wrestling on the map. They built a stadium, and now they have a program for young underprivileged kids. No, you knew that this guy was off his rocker, and I think a lot of those guys were somewhat desperate, and they were willing to gamble on, what was eventually going to happen.
Yeah.
And only one of them lost.
I mean, yeah.
Right?
I mean, two. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, one of them really lost.
That's what I mean.
And then at the end of it, when you realize that one guy, Valentine, just inherited John's estate,
it's amazing. He won. He won. Now listen, go back. If you're Valentine, you're doing it again.
Of course.
Of course.
Well, you're leaving a fucking country that's in turmoil.
Where is he now? That's an interesting question.
Well, I don't know. Zach, did they say where he is now? Or is he in America? Is he?
No, he's definitely. I think he's definitely still in America.
Is he still in that estate?
I don't think so. No, because she was the wife. Nancy was walking around the estate by the end of it.
After you get that money, you're fucking out.
You're gone.
You're out. You're like, I'm moving to Florida.
But isn't that amazing how you have this guy who comes from what country? Bulgaria? Bulgaria. Comes to Bulgaria, befriends this, insanely wealthy psychopath.
Clearly John was in love with him.
John was in love with him, and then he inherits his estate and all of his money. And then the guy goes to jail, and you have all of his money now. That is the American dream. To me, that is the American
Horatio
dream.
Alger story.
The person who leaves you money goes to jail for murder, and you inherit all their money. I mean, people say, "Oh, there's no social mobility in America." Hello, like that's an incredibly inspiring story. I believe in capitalism. Boom.
To be fair, I think he inherited it after he died, John DuPont.
Hey, we're splitting hairs.
I mean,
point is that
the guy was worth $200 million, right?
In 86.
So if you're a Bulgarian and you get like $3 million fucking dollars,
yeah,
no Bulgarian at that time.
When did DuPont die?
2010.
How long did he have to wait for the money?
I'm sure
he died
it didn't take
relatively. I think it was like 2010.
Yeah, it was.
And when did he go to
2010.
jail?
It was. We can look that up right now. Zach,
He was convicted like the year later. It was a year-long trial, and he was convicted and sent to jail right away. So he was in jail for about 14 years, 15 years.
So the Bulgarian guy did have to wait that.
So he had to
time.
probably have these weird meetings. He probably had to go see him.
The Schultzes never really see him again. They talk about in the documentary how close the two families are.
He died in 2010.
You wonder if he got any money before that. Like if this Bulgarian was getting money before that.
He
Probably.
still had, John DuPont had enough money to paint then all the old houses black from
Yeah.
prison. So I'm sure that it's one of these things. He was probably getting paid to go see John to
Do you
hang
regret
out with
not
him.
visiting DuPont when he was alive?
Absolutely, I wouldn't be having to do this podcast.
Right.
I'd be out there wrestling, sprawling. I don't know I'm not a good wrestler. I would just have to blow him probably.
Yeah. Well, listen.
Or lose to him.
300 million.
Although I don't think I'm his type. I mean, he liked fit guys.
Well, he's an interesting guy.
I probably would have to be like a corrupt cop. That's the only way I could get some DuPont money.
Yeah.
Because he was clearly paying those cops when they during that press conference. When
Yeah.
Hey, did John supply you guys with any of those firearms? And he's like, I can't really say.
Well, my favorite thing is when the cops call him. It's the very beginning of the documentary, and they're like, "We got to talk to you about somebody who's killed on your property." John DuPont goes, "No talking," and then they go, "Well," they're being so nice. They're like, "Well, John, we really have to talk to you." And John's basically like, listen, I'm a head of state. You don't meddle in the affairs of heads of state. We got a bloody war coming, so I got to focus on that. Yeah. And it was just the demeanor of the police. Like, they knew they had to go in, but it was still so,
polite.
Sing-songy. Well, John, it would be nice if we could speak to you about the person who was shot on your property.
Could you imagine if that was
anybody else?
Anybody else?
It would be storming the...
Like that guy... Well, who's the black candidate for Republican Party? Was
Gillum?
No. The pizza heir.
Herman Cain.
Herman Cain. Imagine it was Herman Cain. They would have been in there in a second.
I don't know. They might like Herman Cain.
Yeah, they
too.
may like Herman Cain. That's all over.
Mr. Cain.
Yeah, they give him free pizza every time.
Yeah, what was DuPont? Democrat, Republican? Do we know?
Or do those guys have a party at that point?
I don't know. They probably just don't. They probably have a
probably like fiscally Republican, and socially they don't give a shit.
There are firms that just handle the money of one family.
Right.
And the DuPonts certainly qualify in terms of net worth. So I'm sure that those firms for tax reasons just give to every person.
I think there was pictures of him with was it Republican presidents, Zach, and that? I'm not totally sure.
He was close with whoever was in power at the time because he was a big fan. That's big family.
One of my favorite Stephen King books, Dead Zone, and I rewatched the movie last week with Christopher Walken. It's a great movie, but it's right when Martin Short is he's the crazy Senate candidate.
Yeah.
Or candidate for governor. I forget what he's running for. I think it's Senate. But Christopher Walken, realizes that he's going to blow up the world. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen the fucking movie. But the rich guy goes and sees Martin Sheen goes sees the rich guy that Christopher Walken is working with the kid, the guy's son is like a teacher or something, or it's private tutor, and he's like, "Do you believe in any of this guy?" He goes, "No, I got money. You just believe you put money in all those kind of guys,
right?
But don't vote for him. He's crazy." He's like, "But you kind of put money into everybody, and you just." I mean, Sheldon Adelson was the same way. All these guys. They don't.
I love Stephen King, and by Stephen King, I mean the white supremacist from Iowa. I love him.
Yeah, we were on the eve of an election that we're doing this.
Yeah, it's the midterms, baby. Midterms.
Oh, man, I still want
I'm glad everybody's voting, but these stickers, I don't know. I don't want to be cynical because I know that people get angry at that. I think everyone should vote. There's something to me.
Did you vote this year?
Kind of no. There's something to me that's kind of childish about the stickers. I voted.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't wear them. I
love
put mine
that.
near the dog and I took a picture.
I'm not
of it.
hugely into that. This is the least you can do as a citizen.
Right.
Legitimately. The least.
I do think it's the least you can do as a citizen, and if you want to fucking do shit, volunteer for Christ's sakes, not just for candidates, but go.
Why don't you run? Why don't we all run? That's
you and
my
I
thing.
couldn't run. Jesus Christ!
Listen, Dan, I don't know. That's changing. Trump is the.
You and I would
leader.
have to. We could not run on a Democratic or Republican ticket.
No, it's
We
independent.
could run on a Republican ticket. Actually,
Independent. The great thing about the Republican...
You and I could run on a Republican ticket.
The great thing about the Republican Party is they're really loose with the idea of resume. You know?
Oh yeah, like if
They're
you and I,
real.
if you and I in the next 2 weeks did like
Yeah.
a hard right stance.
Oh yeah.
Like
They don't care. You could murder people. There's a great thing about being a born-again evangelical. Donald
Yeah.
Trump was married multiple times. He runs casinos, the filthiest places in the world. Prostitution, drug addiction,
Yeah.
gambling. Literally all of the things warned against in this book these people read.
Yeah.
Immediately just got upset. Hey, by the way, we'll give you what you want. The evangelicals surrounded him and said, we're going to vote for this guy. He is the picture of what they would hate. A big city real estate developer who owns casinos and does Miss America I mean, it couldn't be more cartoonishly against everything in the Bible, and yet they don't care. So I think me and you could just easily...
Oh yeah.
You know?
The only problem is with guys like us is
Yeah.
that like we I mean the thing is like what separates two guys? Like if we ran out a Republican ticket, because I see you and me personality wise as somewhat more of like a Chris Christie, and rather than a Donald Trump, because Donald Trump doesn't really melt down. He just keeps going. You know,
Right.
like, and Chris Christie melts down.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a difference. And I think you and me are more meltdowners.
Well, we're also not winning. You know, like Donald Trump won. We're not
But
going to
like,
win.
there still is like, there's an element of self-doubt that you and I have
Yeah.
that Donald Trump does not have.
Chris Christie's a guy that, you know, a lot of people refer to him as like a brawler, but he always loses brawls for the most part. Like he always he goes up against Jared Kushner and, you know, whatever. Like he gets in the palace, but he never gets into, you know, he's never on the throne and he's never even near the throne. You know, he's one of those guys who, like, you know, is proximity is about it. That's about as far as he's gotten, you know?
Yeah.
He closed a bridge in his own dumb home state because, you know, just a nasty, vindictive thing.
I think that's the
ruined his whole career.
Yeah. Well, Trump has this ability too, where
What
you
a
know,
medieval thing. Like, pull up the drawbridge.
well, Trump has this thing too, and you can see with his relationship
Yeah.
with Lindsey Graham, who really is turned a page since the McCain death.
Right.
But
He's the diva.
he's
Coming into his own.
He really is.
Christine Ford's a lying bitch, and I'm not gay. I'm like, all right, man.
He really is the Kelly Clarkson of the
I
Republican
really
Party.
say to myself, had I stayed in the closet, could I have been a real evil, successful person? And would that have been
I mean,
more...
not successful, but definitely.
I think I could have got... Well, I could have got to Lindsey Graham level, potentially. I mean, I probably would have
Maybe.
undid myself.
The
I don't
thing
know.
is
How
like,
does a guy like that not have scandals?
I think that it's one of the he's one of those dudes who just like somebody had said this in an article. I forget what I had read recently, but Lindsey Graham, and it was a New York Times article, but he's kind of he went from being like McCain's lapdog to Trump's lapdog.
Yeah.
He's just one of those guys who's very good at course correcting.
Yeah.
You know, like
Well, the picture that defines 2018 more than any other is
Yeah.
his smiling face and then that woman behind him crying.
Yeah.
Right after the Kavanaugh thing, and he's just elated.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me sums up 2018.
Yeah,
Cartoonish.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, he's one of these guys who he doesn't really, and he's somebody. Well, he's one of those guys too who like he shit on Trump during the whole campaign.
Yeah.
And then as soon as Trump got in, he did a fucking about face.
There's a similarity to Ted Cruz because Ted Cruz taking a lot of shit from Trump. I mean, Trump said his dad killed Kennedy, and then Ted Cruz.
The thing about Ted Cruz is like, you know, he's going to win in Texas by 5 points against a very far left candidate.
Right.
You know, who I supported. But you know, like
to the tune of 500. Which compared to Dan's sizable salary,
I'm not making any money right
writing
now.
on lots of shows.
I'm not making. I'm
is
not.
really
I'm not making any money
not
right now.
that much money.
I'm not making. You know, I gave money to other causes as well.
Oh, all right. Kind of leaving Beto out to dry.
I donated to multiple congressmen's DWI funds this year. No, I'm not making any money right now. But the point that I'm trying to make is that like Ted Cruz should be beating Beto by like 15 points.
Oh yeah.
You know, like from his political standpoint.
The Republican governor or the Republican Senate, the Republican governor in Texas ahead by 20 points. Texas is not changing. Everyone hates Ted Cruz. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Texas is becoming more progressive. Ted Cruz is he's as unlikable a human being, which is amazing that he won that debate. It's when you watch a hateable
by a hair.
Yeah,
I mean,
by a hair.
Beto did a really good job
He did
for a
fine,
Texas debate.
But because Ted Cruz is so unlikable, he shouldn't have even registered because he's so punchable and hateable.
No, he's
but
he's very good at debating. And
he's very good at debating because he's a guy that's, he's used to people hating him. But that's the benefit of people always hating you. You always have to win them over. You always have to fight. Beto O'Rourke is a very good looking, good, nice guy that rightly so doesn't have the world wanting to storm his castle and drag him out. I mean, Ted Cruz is the type of guy who every day he gets up, opens a door, and the townspeople are outside with pitchforks.
Well, and not
he has
even
to
that,
calm
but
them down.
just like when like somebody's a truly like a bad dude.
Yeah.
When you have somebody like John Boehner and Bob Dole hate him, like they're like when Bob Dole is like, yeah, I'll openly support Trump over.
But
Ted Cruz.
listen, man, it's like to get to that level in politics and to stay on the national scene for that long. I mean,
who do you think would be a worse president, Trump or Ted Cruz?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what Ted Cruz would do. I don't know if Ted Cruz would be more effective. And that could, because everyone says to me, oh, let's impeach Trump. And then it's like, well, do you want Mike Pence? Do you want a very effective, guy who believes a lot of what, because Trump has remade the Republican Party. That's the thing. The moderates are dying or dead. You don't get a Mike Pence.
Yeah, George Will is writing articles every once in a while going on real time.
You're not going to get a Mike Pence like you would have gotten in 2008 or 2012. You're getting the Mike Pence
that he really wants to be.
You're getting a guy who's been emboldened with a conservative court. You're getting a guy that is the vice president for a president who has no problem with some pretty nasty characters on the white nationalist front. Yeah. So Mike Pence he's not going to play along. Pence is the best version of John DuPont.
I don't know. I think John DuPont may be a little more liberal.
Or John DuPont is the best version of Mike Pence.
I really don't think
decide.
you could sit down and ask John DuPont about politics.
No, he's gone. He's crazy.
He would know a lot about.
There was no one from the DuPont family that came to help him. No handlers. Nobody grabbed them. Nobody said. Were they all dead?
I mean, no. They probably. That was a question that I had. His dad clearly had abandoned him, at least emotionally,
right,
from that documentary. But
I would have too.
I mean, imagine if you were that guy's brother, where you're like, oh, let's go to John's. Let me bring the kids to John's house. And he can talk to us about the fucking shitty scene in the woods for 2 hours.
Right. Yeah, it's probably not.
And given like a weird Christmas present,
yeah.
Can you imagine what kind of Christmas presents like John DuPont would give your nieces and nephews?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Either probably like a gun or like
there was
some sort of Fabergé egg
something
set.
About his eyes, DuPont, where you look at him and you're like, this guy is probably not the best at parties.
Yeah.
This isn't a holiday uncle.
No.
This is the guy that really.
This is the guy. He's the guy. I don't know if you're a relative like this, but
yeah,
the relative you see before the real party. It's like, hey, we got to go stop at Uncle DuPont's house for an hour. Wish him a Merry Christmas at 11 a.m.
Yeah,
right between like presents and then the real party
before
with
he starts
family.
Drinking and talking about the Jews.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely. I mean,
well, he's
a French. Fucking millionaire. There's definitely some anti-Semitism there.
He struck me as a guy that is probably. That's the thing about insanity, and I know it, and I know people in my own family. It really is. It's that 10% difference between an eccentric person and somebody who's criminally insane. It is really not that much different. You would talk to a schizophrenic at Bellevue, and they would be lucid for a large portion of the conversation. Yeah. And you'd be like, they're not that bad. And my own mother is a schizophrenic, and she'll be good for like 80%.
Do you think John was a schizophrenic?
I think something was there. I think there was something there that was not diagnosed. Get all the black people out, all the black horses. I don't like the color black. Yeah, no, there was something wrong. I mean, whether it was
I'm going to shoot off a gun in the middle of practice. Nobody's going to say shit.
Nobody's going to say anything. There was something wrong there. And, probably since he was a child, I mean, not socialized, living with mom in that old estate, alone, with your thoughts, kind of embracing You know,
and everybody. The thing is, it's like everybody. They essentially treated him like they treated Bat Kid in San Francisco,
right?
Where it's like, let's give him a police uniform.
That kid didn't die, by the way. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
He did not die, Bat Kid. They closed the city down. He dressed up like Batman, and he did not die.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, you know, someone's got to pay. Is the point? I don't want to know if I don't want to say the kid, but maybe his like you can't just close a city down for a fantasy and not die. So I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. My point is that we're all John DuPont. We can all be John DuPont. We're all just a few bucks and a few enablers. It's like Bill Hicks said. Anyone can be homeless. It takes the right bar, the right girl, the right friends. You know, anyone can be John DuPont. You just get a little bit of money.
It takes the right money. It doesn't take the right. I mean, he had no friends.
Well, no, but that's part of being John DuPont. And by the way, with a few $100 million and an estate like that, you tend to not have friends because they tend to get in the way.
Do you imagine it's the time too, like because you know obviously he's addicted to cocaine at the end of it. Can you imagine being like the coke dealer going to John DuPont's house, and that's the one time where the coke dealer doesn't feel shady. Yeah, where he's like, "Wow, great. I'm the normal. Yeah. I'm the normal end of this transaction.
I'm helping this guy." You know, this guy does coke. He has less time to do everything else he's doing.
Oh man!
I think I think me and you like the story because we think, what is the version of us with $100 million? You know, 500 million, $1 billion. What is the version of us with unlimited resources? What would we do? And I
actually thought about opening up a professional wrestling school.
Yeah. Well, that's
What would you do with $100 million?
Hard to say.
You've thought about it.
I might get into politics.
Oh my god!
I mean, I think that's probably because I think it would be fun. I think I might get into politics.
What would you run for? What do you think you would actually have a legit?
I don't even think it would matter. You know what I mean? Like would you
hire me on your campaign?
Yeah, I've always thought it'd be fun. There's a few things I've always thought would be fun.
Would you hire me on your campaign if you got $100 million?
One of them would be.
What would my job be?
I mean, I could say, you know, what do they call them? Dust busters. Who are the guys that put holes in leaks? Who are those guys? You know what I mean? Like the Black
like
Ops.
Lee Atwater sort of type.
Yeah, Karl Rove, Steve Bannon. But I've always thought it'd be fun to be part of a political campaign.
I can just imagine you leaving an improv theater that's being shut down and them crying and you with a big smile on your face.
I think there's something fun about getting involved in politics without the expectation of just getting in there and going, let's fuck around. You know? And I think that if I had a couple $100 million, I think that might be what I do. I think I might go, let's run a disastrous campaign for something and just have fun with it. Which is almost, by the way, that's kind
arming teachers.
That's kind of how Trump started.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what it was.
What do you think the similarities between DuPont and Trump are?
You know, extreme narcissism.
Yeah.
Delusions of grandeur. And they're not even delusions. I mean, they live in very grand circumstances, but I think they both see themselves as figures of historical importance.
Yeah.
In a way that usually is terrifying, and the people that believe that usually can do some pretty horrible things if they believe that.
Right.
And I think they both believe in that they're very significant figures in history, and they kind of create their own moral universe and they exist in that.
Yeah.
And they're able to justify all kinds of things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a type of guy. I mean, Bill Burr had a great line. He's like, Trump is, you know, this is what a guy who lives at the top of a skyscraper in New York City sounds like. This is what a billionaire sounds like, who lives at the top of his own a building with his gold name on it. Sounds like, and John DuPont, that's exactly what a guy
who has a Foxcatcher flag that is higher than the American flag.
Yeah, a Foxcatcher flag who lives in his own state, essentially. He
decides
lives
his own
world.
ancestry. He decides to become Bulgarian.
Right.
That's the craziest part of it, when he discovers he's Bulgarian.
That's amazing.
And, I mean, you know, it is. I mean, the saddest thing in the world is just seeing, like, Dave Schultz and Nancy Schultz and their kids, and you're like, these people couldn't be more fucking normal. It's like the middle class American dream.
Yeah. Well,
where
where's
they're
their
sitting there.
culpability in this? Where's their responsibility for aiding and abetting and enabling this murderous psychopath?
Well, I mean,
do these people not answer at all for this?
well,
They stuck around at the estate and played
I'm not
fucking
gonna
games.
I'm not going to go through
with this Looney
Look,
Tune.
I'm not going to go through fucking victim blaming. I don't think the kids have any responsibility in it.
Dude, I watch a lot of cult.
Nancy
What's that
shows?
cult thing mean?
Oh,
you watch?
holy hell!
The documentary where the guy,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then everyone's like, "Well, we don't. We don't. What are we?"
Well, that's a very different situation.
But it's very similar in the
I
sense
don't know,
that,
man. If you want to like try for the Olympics your whole life, and this is like,
yeah, I guess so.
dude. I mean, like, I will say this: if you're getting like, if I'm on a show and that show fires all the black people for being black, for just being the color brown,
Yeah.
I'm leaving that show.
Yeah.
Like that. I 100%.
I just want to say I'm not. So if you want to hire me, I'm not leaving a job because I have a difference of opinion with the person running it. Okay? So I'm staying.
This is what your platform is.
Hire me. Country music or whatever.
Whatever
CMT.
it is. Yeah, but they wouldn't want you either.
Of course not.
Where-
I have the luxury of
where's-
making those jokes.
where's
I'm
the
not getting a
where's
job.
The end game for a guy like Tim Dillon. I just gave you like an Oprah question.
I think selling real estate in San Diego.
Yeah, that's a great life.
I mean, that's really not bad. I think that's the future.
you wanna go something more in the
Stand-up
Midwest?
comedy has nothing relevant to say about the cultural moment we're in. Really doesn't. Everything's gone to the internet. Memes are funnier than stand-up.
well, I mean, it's a problem.
I hate
That's
to
our
say
biggest
it.
competition. Everyone's
Dude,
like, oh,
memes are like funnier. Like the internet's I try to watch stand-up now, and I love stand-up, but it's my life, and I'm like, who is this for?
right.
You know, and I say
All right,
that.
I have a question
Yeah.
for you. This is a question.
Yeah.
6-hour open mic or spending a whole day watching amateur wrestling at a pretty high level?
I think amateur wrestling at a pretty high
Right.
level because it's just more. I mean, maybe that's just because I've sat through 6,000 hours of open mics.
Yeah, that'll be
So,
different.
I mean, it would be different. But, you know, I mean, I think the amazing thing about the problem with stand-up right now is it hasn't evolved, and then it's only evolved into not funny. Like specials where people are like, let's do them this way. It's not funny. It's like, well, that's not evolution because you're taking the core element of what it has to be out. So, and I think the evolution of stand-ups is podcasts. I think it's already here. And and I can prove that because all of the big podcasts are packing out theaters, and many of the most well-respected comics aren't. I
Right.
think the hunger is
No,
for
I think
podcasting.
you're right, and hopefully we'll get past 3,000 listens an episode.
Let's do it. Tim Dillon's going to hell. If you like me, come on over. Thank you.
I got to do that show again. We were supposed to do this big Halloween show.
Yeah, I felt bad. I was sitting there in LA.
When am I-
trying
can I do
trying
the
to
show
pitch
again?
Writers who are at the end of their career, if they want to get involved. I email my agents. I give them a list of names. They're like, these are kind of a reach. I'm like, set the meetings now, okay, pig.
It's like David Mamet.
No, it's guys that are like the guy who created Mad Men, Wiener, the guy who created
yeah.
Boardwalk Empire, Terrence.
those
Miller.
are big guys.
I'm like, I don't care. Let him say no. Who cares? You're my agent. Do something. John DuPont wouldn't be putting limits on me.
You should contact
He
the
made
DuPont
me
estate.
believe.
You should contact this guy Valentin Yordanov for your
I
show.
will. He's never written before, but
Yeah.
He's
Just
got
make
some
him a
money.
script supervisor.
he's got a few bucks.
Just pretend you're Bulgarian.
But a guy like that's got to be so smart because there are people that come out of the woodwork to take his money now, and
Oh,
he's probably like, all right.
Yeah, there
you're
was
not-
no list of his location of where he's at.
Oh no, he's somewhere. If that guy's smart, he's on an island.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't even know when you live on an island.
Not-
You want to go in the middle. I think you want to
Wherever.
go like in the middle of the woods, man.
I don't know about the woods. I mean, that's a very American thing to say. Most people like the beach and the nice weather.
don't like the
Bulgaria,
beach.
I don't know. Maybe
I'm
he
more of
does
a
like the
Halloween
woods.
guy, you know?
I know. Most people aren't. Most people don't want to live in the woods with the spirits. They want to go to fucking the beach. Okay, I'm more of a Halloween
There's
guy.
a lake near there, some hiking.
Halloween guy.
Maybe a nice mom and pop like breakfast place.
I'm sure it's a nice mom and pop breakfast place. I'm sure it's so sweet, and you go in there, and they've got a lot of nice things to say about different races. You know, I love this pretend, world where. But yeah, I mean,
we got to get you a boyfriend.
we got
This fool.
he says this, he just knocks something over. Well, I gotta, when I'm ready. I'm in the denouement of my career, which is
You're 33.
Yeah, and I plan to make my exit into something else. Whether
I
it's
plan to too. I think
real
I'm
estate
go into,
or maybe I'm
I have
gonna
a plan too.
Maybe I'm gonna be. I've always wanted to be like. I'll be a Karl Rove. I'll be like a dark arts for a really rich person I believe in. Pierce Bush, hit me up.
Would you campaign for Bloomberg?
I'd rather get on the ground floor of somebody who's really young and has a long career ahead of them.
What about that?
Bloomberg won't win. Nobody's going to hand the reins over to another.
Scarelli, maybe Scarelli.
I would work for Martin Scarelli. I believe in him.
All right, we'll see the documentary Foxcatcher. Tim, where can we find you?
Tim J. Dillon, Dillon on Instagram and Twitter. My podcast, Tim Dillon's Going to Hell, is available on iTunes and Gas Digital. You also can see the comedy lineup on Netflix, episode 8, my Comedy Central half hour. If you get a cable package and subscribe to Comedy Central, it's on their on-demand feature. You could also download the app and airdrop it onto your TV and watch it in segments, which I'm sure everyone's ready to do. So, fun stuff. Also, if you have a job for me, email me. I'll come in for an interview.
Oh, you can find my dates on danstgermain.net. Rate and subscribe to the podcast. Hopefully we have an episode next week. I have to set it up. Our wonderful producer, Zach, is going to be out of town. I have an album, No Real Winners Here, out on 800 Pound Gorilla Records. I think I'm going to be on live at the Comedy Cellar this weekend on Comedy Central. I'm at DS Germain on Twitter, and follow me on Instagram and all that good stuff.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a lovely experience.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks so
much.
Bye.